All right, an objection to ethical egoism. This is given by G.E. Moore. It's that ethical egoism is self-contradictory. Again, I think I told you guys in the Philosopher show, but if I didn't, I compiled all this stuff from an encyclopedia article from Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. I've annotated it. I'll annotate it in the notes. Very helpful. Hopefully, I'm taking that and I'm making it, understandable, because it doesn't always. I mean, a lot of times there's a professional philosophers, so they're going to speak philosophies, and it's going to be hard to understand. And a lot of their examples are given in with variables and stuff like that. So hopefully this is helpful. What I'm doing for you guys, but also I would definitely check that out. It's also very helpful. So here's what Moore says. Number one, on egoism, I ought to maximize my good. Right? I ought to the most benefit. Right. However, number two, on egoism, others ought not to maximize my good. They should maximize their own goods. They're not focused on me. They're focused on themselves. But number three, to say something is my good, right, is just to say that my possessing that thing is good. Wow. Sorry, motorcycles in the background. Yeah, so to say, for example, I don't know, Pop-Tarts is my good. When I use that phrase, my good, right, that doesn't mean that I possess goodness itself. That doesn't make any sense, right? What I'm saying is, me having the Pop-Tarts, that is a good thing. Right. Number four, I don't even eat Pop-Tarts. I don't know where I came up with that. Number four, if my possession of X is good, right? If my possession of Pop-Tarts, let's say, is good, then I must hold that others ought to maximize my possession of it, right? Because listen to the way the phrase has changed now. It is just a good thing, right? It's a good thing in general that I possess Pop-Tarts. So somebody else looks at it and they say, oh, it's in my self-interest because it's a good thing, right? Not good for him, but just good in general. So I ought to do that. So others should and should not maximize my good. Remember what I said was they're supposed to focus on their own goods. I guess Moore's argument here is just when you use that word good, it automatically has this objective connotation, right? It automatically is saying just, it is good in general, and yet here in ethical egoism, we're saying good for the specific person. So here are some responses. I don't think that's a good argument. It turns on vocabulary, and I don't really tend to buy those kinds of arguments. Number one, egoism doesn't hold that what is good ought to be pursued by everyone, right? So just because something is good doesn't mean that I should. It actually does benefit me, right? Now, that still might show that egoism is false, right? That they can't say that you should always pursue what's good, but the argument here was that it's self-contradictory. Number two, there are other ways to interpret this phrase "my good." Again, vocabulary. When it turns on vocabulary, then it's not that all those arguments are wrong. It's just that those can be touchy. I could say that when I say "my good," rather than saying "good in general," my having the Pop-Tarts is just good in general. I might be saying that there's this, this good for me relation that is different than any other kind of relation, and it's a unique relation, and we all tend to get it. That's a little bit more difficult, I guess, to understand just by me explaining it. So let me give you a different one. I might say by my good, I might mean that from my perspective, it is a good thing, right? So there are different ways to interpret my good than the ones that Moore puts out there. And finally, saying education of the poor is good absolutely wouldn't mean I have to be a teacher, right? It doesn't mean, even if I think that something is good absolutely, it doesn't mean that I'm supposed to go and pursue that thing. It just means that it's a good thing to pursue. Even other theories would say just because something is good doesn't mean that you specifically have to pursue that good. Otherwise, I mean, we would all be so stretched thin, because it's good to to solve world hunger. Um, it's good to make comfortable couches. Like I can't do both. I can't do both, and it's good to do philosophy shows. I can't do all three of those. You know what I mean? Like there's just so many things that are good. There's no way we could always pursue all those things. All right. One way to support this argument, however, or I guess one interpretation of this argument that might work, and this is given by a philosopher named Thomas Nagel, whom I've reviewed one of his books on the Philosopher's bookshelf. The way my pain feels, right, its badness, is and not any connection with me specifically in the pain, gives me reason to alleviate it, right? I see that, if I have the opportunity, the fact that pain is just bad gives me a reason to go and stop pain when I can. I don't know that this. I don't know that this shows that it's self-contradictory, but again, if it shows that it's false, that may be all that we want.